right, so yesterday, Jason and I traveled from Provo, Utah, where we had participated in, or we were attending the Mormon Transhumanist Association conference and doing site work in and around Salt Lake City. And we drove about 4 hours to southeast Utah, and we're staying just north of Monticello, Utah. And so when I initially had looked for a place to stay, I just didn't get a great feeling about Moab, so we were looking for somewhere a little bit more low-key. And, you know, only at the time that we had made arrangements, I know this is a part of the world that Jason has a real affinity with, and he wanted to show it to me. And afterwards, I realized that this whole southeastern Utah, Four Corners area, connected, you know, with Colorado and Arizona and Utah, was a center of uranium mining during the Manhattan Project and then ongoing through the Cold War. And so there was this quite profound exchange between the mining of vanadium and then also the processing of uranium and the impact on the indigenous people, the original people of this region. Their legacy and their connection to the land goes back so many centuries. And the area we're going later, White Mesa, it's the land of the Ute Mountain Ute tribe. And so in looking at this and looking at the uranium, actually Moab, even though today it's known primarily as a destination for outdoor recreation travel, was sort of the uranium processing capital of the United States during sort of this 20-30 year time period of nuclear development of both the atomic bombs and then later on atomic weapons and nuclear energy systems. And also Monticello was a smaller processing facility here, or Monticello, I think they call it. And what's so tragic about the Monticello area was that they did not inform the public about the impacts of radiation on population health. And the processing facility actually is this area behind us, which is today known as the Hideout golf course. It's a public golf course that was a super fun site. And actually, I think it's gotten awards for the quality of its design and the environmental friendliness of this golf course, which is built on a uranium processing facility, which was occupying original lands of the Ute people. And it was tied up in systems of war and domination, right? And now it is a public golf course, but essentially, you know, public with no trespassing, you know, for the winter. And so I think that this speaks a lot to this legacy, these legacy systems of control, of engineered life versus an animist interconnected view of what life is. And the tragedy of the town of Monticello is that many people got cancer from the radiation exposure. Women would, you know, this is in the 1950s and 60s, and, you know, they would put their sheets and the clothes out on the line to dry, and they would be caked in yellow dust. And the children would play in the creeks with tailings from the processing that contaminated the water, and there were very high levels of leukemia in this area. And so all of this comes together in, I think, pretty profound ways as far as our relations to the natural world and one another. And so this morning when we were coming out, I was looking a little bit more into the uranium processing, and you know, I was curious, like, where does uranium come from? You know, we understand, you know, petroleum is coming from, you know, ancient carbonized life forms, but where did uranium come from? And, you know, as best the cosmological chemists can ascertain at this point, that one of their projections is that the uranium came from supernovas, the death of stars, where solar, you know, the star power gave itself out into this final death rattles that would create this radioactive material that was incorporated into the earth. And so when the mining came here during the Second World War, and people were often taking advantage of the indigenous people who are very patriotic and gave considerable, you know, they gave of themselves to the war effort. They were highly patriotic, so they participated in this vanadium mining, feeling like that they were affecting the war effort, and so they took advantage of that. And going back, there were people who knew that it was not right to use the uranium that was this very special rock. And essentially, if you imagine this material is the death of a star that is incorporated into the living systems of an animus planet, then you go and use that and you desecrate that embedment in our universe, energetic universe, to make war, to essentially make war, make bombs, drop bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, bombs that should never have been dropped. I mean, most people understand that the war was already over before those bombs were dropped. And I feel increasingly that the Department of Energy and the radiation goes back to this idea of some sort of human transmutation into a different kind of energetic being that is resonant outside of the natural existing life systems, and that is being perpetrated by systems of domination and emerging through various government agencies and company agencies to transform us in ways we are never meant to be transformed, and to wage war and then do scientific investigations on the people to see what happened with the radiation exposure. And when they met at Alta to do the Human Genome Project in 1984, originally, the meaning of that, they were there to talk about the atomic weapons and the research into the bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. That's what brought those 19 scientists to Alta Ski Resort, to talk about DNA mutations that had resulted from that bombing and how to leverage that knowledge. And then from that, they decided that the best way to do it was to do the Human Genome Mapping Project. But there are these weavings of genetic manipulation through environmental contamination and radiation that harmed the miners, harmed the Navajo miners, who were very loosely regulated, and then they came back and said, oh, you're right, we should have been watching. Now we'll watch you very closely. That we're all part of this larger environmental poisoning system that then gets covered over and turned into a golf course. And it's sort of like, well, we've offered you a very nice, environmentally friendly golf course. You know, what do you have to complain about? Like, that story is an old story. That story is done. And what I'm here today is to say that story isn't done. That reconciliation has never been made right. And the town of Monticello there's this dynamic between the settlers, who were predominantly members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and then the Ute people. And so this is a settler town. And then later we'll be going to White Mesa, which is indigenous reservation lands, and the dispossession that's connected with that. So, you know, I just want to say the story isn't over. It's continuing. And in the background, we have these amazing mountains of the San Juan National Forest. And we came through Arches yesterday, and you step out of our current conception of the time frame. You know, our lives, a human lifespan is just a blip, you know, a tiny little blip. Even the time frame of atomic energy is a tiny little blip in terms of these ancient stone beings, and then the tiny, you know, lichens that are colonizing them. And like, I keep thinking that we're almost like if there's a biological soil crust of all of the amazing creatures that transform sand into soil, into life, and to make life available, like nitrogen available to plants to continue that. If we're seeing that as these giants onto these tiny beings, what immense presence must we be? Maybe we are a biological soil crust for some much more massive understanding of beingness. And our time frame is just so small. But in it, we can try to make sense of the stories and try to uplift them and try to make sense from them and patterns from them. And so I think just in wrapping up, I want to say, when I was up on Alta, we went up the mountain and it was snowing sideways, and we were really worried about getting down. And so I sort of hurriedly made my offering of the spiral of the cedar and then the flowers on the first day of spring. And I had things that I wanted to leave there, but I had things I wanted to bring back. And one of the things I left there unknowingly was my panopticon, my wood from the Schuylkill River with the eye, nature's eye, and it got left behind in the snow. And I was really kind of sad about it, because that wood has kept me company since I started doing this the past year, of these offerings and these storytellings. But I felt like it was meant to be there. If there was a place where the panopticon of nature would imprint, the birthplace of the internet and the birthplace of the Human Genome Project, that would be it. So I've been looking for maybe another piece of wood to take with me on the next phase of this journey. And this is laying right in front of the no trespassing sign here in the Hideout golf course, which I will point out that occult means hidden. So like we're on the hidden story, the occulted story of the true cost of uranium and its role in the human plus post-human agenda. And to me, it's quite beautiful. It's got these bark beetles on it. I don't know if it's part of the cedar out here, and cedar is a healing tree, and then there's bits of patterning, which is maybe from the paper wasps, and it's torn, right? It's got this, there's sort of a violence to it, but it also reminds me of a snake. And so I think that there is something about, when I was reading Werner Vinge's book, Rainbow's End, one of the scenes was they are staving off the shredding of the entire knowledge library in the library, and they were looking out the windows at a sidewalk at UC San Diego, and in the story the sidewalk was the shape of a snake. And it turns out there actually is a real snake sidewalk at the University of San Diego library right outside, and that is a center for nanotechnology. And actually there's an LDS temple a stone's throw from there, and the Salk Institute is a stone's throw from there. And the snake, there's a description of the snake sidewalk, this public art installation, and how it came to be. And all of the tiles of the snake are hexagons, right? So the box, these idea of the boxing of life into these hexagons. And they say that there's a loop in the snake, and this loop has the Garden of Eden, where they say that ignorance is bliss and wisdom is dangerous, and that you could just stay in this Garden of Eden without that knowledge, that knowledge of destruction, of the pulling uranium and life out of the land. And the tail of that snake goes down the hill, and the end of the snake goes right to the biotechnology labs, right? So it's quite amazing, this snake and knowledge, and comparing an animist view of an interconnected dynamic universe and our place as just one tiny bit of it into a system of engineered domination. And I feel like with that knowledge that came would be the desecration of the gift of that star that made the uranium, and that we used it for war. And so we have to tell that story, and then we have to start to heal those wounds. So here we are at the public no trespassing golf course of the Hideaway golf course, former Superfund site here in Monticello, Utah, Cancer Valley.